Most people who know this story think it's about a guy who couldn't follow simple instructions. One rule: walk out of the underworld, don't look back, and the woman you love follows you back into the world of the living. He looked back. She vanished. Forever this time. And for 2,000 years, people have told this story like it's a lesson about patience, or doubt, or just bad luck. But here's what almost nobody talks about. Therapists have a name for exactly what Orpheus did in that tunnel. It's not a myth pattern, it's a clinical one. And if you've ever gotten close to something good, a relationship, a job, a version of your life you worked for, and felt this quiet, almost involuntary urge to check if it's really there, you've done what Orpheus did. This isn't a story about love. It's a story about why some of us can't walk forward without confirming the worst first. Let's actually walk through it, because the details matter more than people remember. Orpheus is the best musician who has ever lived. Not metaphorically. In the myth, his music can move stones, calm beasts, stop rivers. He marries Eurydice. Within days, she's bitten by a snake and dies. Most men in Greek myth would have grieved, and that would be the end of it. Orpheus doesn't accept it. He walks into the underworld, alive, to ask Hades and Persephone to give her back. And he sings. He sings so well that Hades, the god who has never once shown mercy to a living soul who walked into his domain, agrees. One condition: walk ahead of her, lead her to the surface, and do not look back until you're both standing in daylight. Simple, clear, achievable. He gets her almost the entire way. The exit is in sight. The light is visible. And right there, not at the start, not in the dark, but at the very edge of getting everything he wanted, he turns around. She's pulled back into the underworld. This time, permanently. He's not allowed back down. The story just ends there. No second chance. That's the myth. Most people stop analyzing at, he should have listened. That's not where the actual story is. Here's the new reveal. Orpheus didn't look back because he doubted Eurydice was behind him. He looked back because he couldn't tolerate not knowing for one more second whether he'd actually get to keep her. That distinction changes everything about this story. If you read this as a story about distrust in someone else, it's a fairly boring myth about a guy who broke a rule. But if you read it as a story about a man who could not sit in uncertainty about something good, who needed to resolve the tension immediately, even at the cost of destroying the thing he was trying to protect, it becomes something almost uncomfortably familiar. Because that's a pattern. It has a name. It shows up constantly in people who've experienced loss, instability, or inconsistency early in life. The nervous system gets wired to treat good things might be ending as a 5-alarm emergency that has to be checked right now, instead of a feeling that can simply be tolerated. The outcome this maps to is the one almost everyone watching this actually wants. The ability to receive good things without sabotaging them on the way in. Not how to trust people more. That's surface-level advice. The real outcome underneath this story is learning how to walk forward into something good without needing to check, test, or confirm it the moment it's almost yours. That's what Orpheus actually lost in that tunnel. Not Eurydice. The ability to simply receive. Here's what almost everyone gets wrong about this myth, and it's worth saying plainly. Everyone treats the lesson as follow instructions, or trust the process. That's the old read. It's been the old read for 2,000 years. But that framing assumes Orpheus's mistake was a logic error, a rule he broke by accident or impatience. It wasn't a logic error, it was an emotional one. And emotional errors don't get fixed by better instructions. You can tell someone, "Don't look back," 1,000 times, and if their nervous system is convinced that good things vanish unless monitored, they will look back anyway. Not despite the warning, because of what's happening underneath the warning. This is the actual contrast. The old belief says Orpheus failed because he doubted the deal. The real pattern says Orpheus failed because some part of him had already decided, long before he entered the underworld, that things this good don't simply stay, and no instruction on earth was going to override a belief that deep. Put those two next to each other, and the story flips. It stops being about a broken rule. It becomes about a person who, even while receiving the exact thing he asked the gods for, could not let himself believe he was allowed to keep it. If that sounds familiar, it's because almost everyone has a version of this. The relationship that was going well until you found a reason to test it. The job offer you got right before you started looking for the catch. The good week you couldn't enjoy because you were too busy waiting for it to end. Same pattern, different underworld. So why does the brain do this? Why look back at the exact moment looking back guarantees the loss? The nervous system doesn't actually distinguish between "this might end" and "this is currently ending." To a brain that's been trained, usually early, usually by inconsistency, loss, or unpredictability, uncertainty itself feels like danger. Not maybe danger, active danger. And the brain has one job above all others: resolve danger immediately. It doesn't care if the resolution destroys the good thing. It cares about ending the unbearable feeling of not knowing. That's the trade Orpheus made, even if he never would have said it out loud. In that final stretch of tunnel, keep walking and tolerate the uncertainty, lost to look now and end the uncertainty. Even though looking was the one action guaranteed to cause the exact loss he was trying to prevent. This is why willpower advice never works on this pattern. Nobody who checks their phone 40 times waiting for a reply does it because they lack discipline. Nobody who picks a fight right when things are going well does it because they don't value the relationship. The checking, the testing, the picking, those aren't failures of character. They're the nervous system trying to convert unbearable uncertainty into a fast, controllable answer, even a bad one. Looking back wasn't weakness. It was the most efficient way Orpheus's nervous system knew how to make the not knowing stop. This is where it stops being theory. At the cold end of the spectrum, this isn't just one myth either. Variations of "do not look back" show up across multiple ancient traditions, almost always attached to someone losing something the moment they try to confirm it's still there. That's not a coincidence built into one culture's storytelling. That's humans, across centuries, independently noticing the same psychological failure point and turning it into a warning. But the version that actually lands is closer to home than a study or a pattern across mythology. Think about the person, maybe it's you, who finally gets into a stable relationship after years of unstable ones, and within a few months starts manufacturing arguments. Not because anything is wrong, because the calm itself becomes unbearable, and some part of them needs to check if the good thing is real by testing whether it survives a crisis they created. Or the person who gets the job, the opportunity, the thing they worked years for, and instead of letting themselves feel it, immediately starts scanning for the catch, the reason it'll fall apart, the proof that it was too good to be true. That's the modern tunnel. Same walk toward the light, same urge to turn around right before reaching it. If you've ever felt that specific, almost magnetic pull to check on something good right when it's about to be secured, that's not you being broken. That's the oldest, most documented psychological reflex humans have, wearing different clothes than it wore in this myth. So here's the line worth sitting with. You did not look back because you were weak. You looked back because somewhere you learned that good things do not simply stay. That belief wasn't built in one moment. It was usually built slowly, by inconsistency, by good things ending without warning, by learning early that the only way to feel safe was to stay alert for the exit. And the cruelest part of the pattern is exactly what happened in the tunnel. The alertness itself is what causes the loss. The nervous system monitors for the ending of good things, and in monitoring for it, it manufactures it. That's the whole tragedy of this myth decoded. Orpheus didn't lose Eurydice to Hades. He lost her to his own inability to tolerate almost having her. And the way out of that, the only way out, isn't to white-knuckle your way through the tunnel hoping you don't turn around. It's recognizing the moment the urge shows up, naming it. This is the look-back urge. This is my nervous system trying to resolve uncertainty by forcing an ending. Because the second you can name it, you've created 1 inch of space between the urge and the action. And that inch is where everything changes. You don't have to win the urge to look back. You just have to recognize it before your hand turns your head. If you've ever sabotaged something good right before it was fully yours, a relationship, an opportunity, a quiet stretch of peace, you already know this story better than most classics professors do. This isn't a myth about a man who broke a rule. It's a diagnostic for anyone who has ever needed certainty more than they needed the thing itself. Save this video. You'll need it the next time you're standing in your own tunnel, almost in the light, and that pull to turn around shows up again. And if you know someone who keeps looking back right when things are finally going well, send them this. They'll know exactly why the second they hear it.